Okay, let me tell you a little bit about the Nairobi Marathon this weekend. Firstly, I just want to say that this experience was out of this world. Being so close to the front of a marathon group, especially a marathon group of this size, was unbelievably cool. And yeah, looking back at some of the shots that I captured this weekend, just really being grateful for having experienced that. It was really beautiful. So, hoping to share some of that with you today. The first thing is just the sheer size of that front group. It was insane. So, first things first, let me go back once. First things first, what is Standard Charter and what does it mean to most Kenyans? So, Standard Charter, I think, is the only race in Kenya that's internationally recognized and has the best timekeeping system out of all the Kenyan races. So, for any athlete who's trying to get discovered by a team or by a manager, or trying to make his break into sort of international marathons but doesn't quite have the resources to get there just yet, they're going to want to be in this race and they're going to want to set a good time. It's a super important race for most Kenyans, and for any Kenyan who can't get overseas, they'll set their sights on Standard Charter and setting their best possible time there. So what you get is this massive field of super strong athletes all craving that victory. And yeah, the result is a huge front pack that just washes over anything in its path. So one of the craziest things about this marathon is that the pushchair race and the 21-kilometer race started 15 and 20 minutes before the main event. And I think in most marathons this would be okay, but not this one. So no discredit to the organizers at all, but if this was an international marathon, from what I can tell from the last few marathons that I've watched, the front group stays relatively small from the beginning, and yeah, definitely doesn't take up too much space on the road. So this wouldn't be a problem. But in this marathon, the front pack, like I said, is just this big, hungry, roaring wave that's sweeping up anything and everything in its path. And yeah, it was quite entertaining and a little bit frightening to watch this group of humans just completely take out the pushchair and stragglers of the 21 race. So yeah, there's some awesome footage of people just getting swallowed by this wave. It's really beautiful. Then, yeah, I guess really cool to note that this front pack stayed together for most of the race. In fact, it only gets whittled down to a few people around the 38, 39 kilometer mark, which is really impressive and just goes to show the depth of talent that there is at this event and in Kenya in general. Really quite insane. Let me give you a bit of a background on my journey to the event. So I traveled there with a group from Iten, which is only 350 kilometers away from Nairobi. But due to the conditions of the roads and just the way that people drive here, that 350 kilometer journey took over 6 hours. And yeah, our group was meant to leave in the morning at around 2:30, 3, but the company that was renting us cars kind of screwed us over, and we only managed to leave around 5:30. So we stood out in the cold and dark at a petrol station for like 3 hours in the morning, and it was not ideal. Let me tell you, if I was an athlete and I was running the next morning, that's not how I'd like to spend my day before. Not only that, but we got through the registration and spent most of the day there just due to getting things registered, also waiting for friends, waiting for people to come join the group and sorting out logistics and things like that. We only got to our hotel room at 8:30. It was a long day, and my heart really felt for the athletes that were running the next day. The next morning, super stressful for me. The next morning involved a 4-kilometer walk to the start, and it seemed like a lot of the athletes were doing that walk, not just the group that I was with. So that was really interesting. But got to the start, expected to find the taxi that had my bicycle locked inside it at the start. Turns out it was back at the hotel, so I was super late for my media meeting, and yeah, got to the start line with my media vest and everything, only 5 minutes to go. So it was a really high stress moment trying to get there and capture the start of the 21 kilometer, but I made it, so pumped. It was just the first time sort of watching a real life marathon. I have a background in trail running, so to watch these guys absolutely send it on the road was really quite impressive. Yeah, road tactics also aren't super familiar to me, but it was really cool to see at the end, in his interview after the race, Elijah mentioned how he spent a lot of his time at the back of the pack, just trying to keep up with the pace of the front guys and the guys who were expected most to win. Yeah, his plan was to stick with them. If they increased the pace, he'd increase the pace, and then at the end, give it a final kick, and they couldn't quite stick with him. So that's how he did it. And looking back at my footage, it's really, really cool to see how he actually did that. In a lot of my shots, he is towards the back of the pack. One or two from the beginning of the race where he's feeling good and you can see him out leading the way, but most of the time he's at the back, and he stuck to his plan and executed. So well done to you, Elijah, dude. You absolutely crushed it. Going back to the chaotic element of this event, water tables were insane. It was actually so much fun to watch. So it's not like a international race where a lot of the guys have like an elite table with their water bottle or their goo sort of attached to their water bottle. Here it just sort of seemed like the race organizers had donated a whole bunch of bottled water, like just standard bottled water, and volunteers were handing that out. But because this front wave of runners was so big, there weren't enough volunteers to get out bottles, and these guys would just come flying past, grabbing bottles out hands. Water bottles would go flying everywhere. It was really, really funny to watch. But what was really cool was obviously not every athlete could get a water bottle, but the ones that did would take a couple sips, pass on to the guys next to them, and all was good. So yeah, that was a really cool sportsman-like part of the race to witness. This race also came with a fair amount of scenery changes. There were some awesome shots of like just vast expanses of land, and then some really cool planes flying overhead near the airport, slums to big city land, like cityscapes, to huge mansions on the side of hills. So really quite a big diversity in the scenes that you saw along this 42-kilometer route. Then let me just get to the finish. The finish of this race was awesome to watch. It was so cool. So it sort of whittled down to the last three guys, and yeah, then it was sort of back and forth between Alphonse and Elisha, and yeah, those last few kilometers with them finishing just 2 seconds apart, really flipping nail-biting stuff, and really cool to see Elijah give it his all right until the end. So yeah, that was awesome. But the event as a whole, super good vibes. People loved it, and just seeing people around having fun, Kenyans getting stoked, and lots of dancing, music, a really well put together event, and so grateful that I could be there, experience it, and be a part of it. So yeah, pumped. If you enjoyed this video and you'd like to see more content around sort of running around Iten and Kenya, I'm going to be here for the next 3 months, and probably be making a few more videos like this and on other topics based around the area. So if that interests you, give this video a like, hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one, hopefully. Aweh.